The 6.5 is on the road here at Lenovo Tech World in the iconic Sphere in Las Vegas. This event and structure is amazing. And Dan, we're the live pregame here. Can you believe this?
We are the pregame. It is Tech World, Pat, and it's going to be a killer lineup today. It's going to basically be us here for the next couple of hours with all of you. Very excited, and thank you so much all for joining. And of course, we're going to be talking to some of Lenovo's leadership throughout the next couple of hours, and then they're going to have it's like a star-studded kind of thing going on here, right? Jensen Huang,
yes.
Of course, YY, CEO of Lenovo, is going to be up on stage. You're going to have Lisa Su. I mean,
yes.
Cristiano Amon. I don't think I can be fair and give credit to everybody here. I'd be reading off the list, but it's a star-studded event, and yes, this venue never disappoints.
Yeah, it is a big show, and one of the interesting things about Lenovo is they operate from pocket to cloud, all the way from the smartphone, all the way to the largest hyperscaler data centers and everything in between. Now, one of the big conversations related to AI is physical AI or edge AI. You know, when should you put your AI in certain places? When does it go in your pocket? When does it go in your PC? Where should it go? Now, for the factory floor, it has to operate disconnected from the mothership power. And I can't imagine a better person to talk about this than Anwar from Lenovo. Anwar, great to see you.
Great to see you. Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So Pat said it well, right? I mean, factory scale is just different. When you're thinking about putting AI to work, there's a couple of big differences. Of course, you've got latency, you've got security, and you also have accuracy. I mean, that's one of those things like where I always say like an LLM, if it comes back and it's wrong, no harm. It's maybe a little annoying.
Yeah.
But when the factory floor, when it's not precise, you start to get, misrun batches of gear. You get equipment broken down that shouldn't have broken down. There's a lot going on. So what is, in your mind, the keys, the bottlenecks to basically do AI and inference at scale inside of these AI factories?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
AI factories on the factory floor.
Yeah, factories. Yeah. Now, I think one of the things that you touched on there is really important, which is reliability. I don't know of any company that can afford to have their factories down for any reasonable amount of time. So having intelligence locally, running in the edge or in the factory, doing defect detection and so on, and having like a fast turnaround time to correct that is critical, right? You can't, comms goes down, power goes down outside the city, it can't affect your operations. So that's one of the reasons why hybrid AI on the factory floor just makes a ton of sense. It makes sense in other contexts too that you brought up, personal devices and so on, we can get into that, but on the factory side, it's absolutely mission critical, and getting scale performance across all the factories in the world is quite difficult to do in a centralized way. So we think the hybrid AI story is a really strong one.
So Anwar, there has been AI in the factory floor for years, right? And it was traditionally machine learning, very hard to program once you got it right. Now we're in this age of generative AI where you can actually take advantage of all the data that's being produced out there. Mm-hmm. And my impression from previous generations was it was bigger, it was big data, but it was smaller compared to what we can do with the new technologies. Yeah. What is it architecturally that needs to change to be able to take advantage of the technology, but also all the data that's being created?
Yeah, it's amazing. These models that we're getting today are extremely capable. They have huge context windows, meaning you can, look at a lot of context to answer a question or make a decision or accomplish what you want to accomplish. I think the challenge, though, has to do with data, and you kind of hit the nail on the head here, which is, and there's a lot of results from research and industry showing this. Feeding the right data in is critically important. You can get away, these models are so good these days that even with like a distilled or quantized small model, you can get amazing results if you have the right contextual data that you're providing. So one of the challenges and that we're building for in hybrid AI is getting the right data to the model or the agent at the right time. There's I don't know, a couple of industry blogs recently that kind of really clearly show what goes wrong when you're just like shoving data into this thing blindly if you're not doing any kind of curating or distillation. So I think that's kind of the next frontier for scaling out models all the way to the edge. When I say all the way to the edge, I mean like in your pocket, like you said, or on your wrist or whatever.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's happening really quickly too. You know, just being here at this event in the last few days as we, came into the year, it was like watching just how fast model innovation. But we saw an interesting thing in a recent presentation, Pat, where they kind of showed the number of models being created. There's so much focus on models, kind of the big frontiers, but so many models for like real world, for manufacturing, for use cases, for healthcare. Like this is where the volume and all that data that it gets unlocked, because like we're still really trained. Most of like what people have experienced right now with AI is what, like 5% of the world's data. And so being able to optimize the factory, for instance, is one of those use cases. There'll be a whole set of models that'll have to be created just for these use cases.
That's right.
And it's really, really interesting. But we kind of started, we talked about security, we talked about low latency, all of those things to drive inference, but hybrid is the thing, right? I mean, so you might have those zero latency needs at the edge for running the day-to-day operations on the floor. At the same time as all that data is being created, you're not going to have enough compute locally to have all that data stored there, managed there. It's going to all have to be uploaded and out to the cloud, and then you're synthesized and analyzed. Like, how are you sort of recommending that organizations design to do this in a way that works?
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the mission that our team has. So I run a group called the Lenovo AI Technology Center. We're basically creating a platform to do exactly this, to take data that you've put in your data lake, your lake house, whatever data storage system you have, and based on the kind of agentic work you want to do or prompts that you're seeing and so on, we can actually go and pull the relevant data, the relevant subsection of the knowledge graph, optimize it for context to be used with that work or that prompt. I think the key thing we want our customers to know is that the data systems themselves don't have to change. It's really what we build on top of it. And getting smarter about how we manage that context, what data wants to live at the edge or can live at the edge for data security reasons or otherwise, and what can live in a lakehouse, in the cloud, or in an on-prem data center, and whatnot. Our goal is not to be prescriptive about where to move this stuff, but when you're storing it at rest, but to be prescriptive about how we move it when you're actually working with the data. So really, your existing installation, if you're a customer, your existing storage mechanism should work. There's so many amazing developments in the ecosystem right now. People making old data storage systems work for the modern era. And we just want to make our stuff just work with that as well, so it's like turnkey for customers.
Yeah, the industry seems to be focusing in on like this element of a data fabric, okay? Where it doesn't matter where the data necessarily sits, right? The industry's already tried piling all of your data into a data lake. That doesn't work. It's unwieldy, and you're one acquisition away from breaking that paradigm. So coming up with a data fabric that cuts across wherever the data is, and then you add on top of that enterprise SaaS data, right? So is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's a fabric in the sense that it's connecting. It's a fairly distributed system that we have with hybrid AI specifically, but in general, if you look at any enterprise installation, you have people with laptops and phones accessing data, you have the data center, you have smaller server clusters, they may have a cloud backend that they're using for some things, for some SaaS application. It's everywhere, so we need to be everywhere. One of the things that maybe is a slight nuance is that it's not just knowing where the data is. You actually have to do some comprehension and semantic understanding of the data, build ontologies that help you understand how this data is related to this other data, so that you can actually make sense of it. And this is why you mentioned that data lakes in and of themselves don't just work. Just feeding a bunch of data in doesn't work. You really do have to understand the relationships of the data to each other.
That's right.
Is this describing an object on the factory floor? What is it saying about it? That kind of thing. And that, there are companies working on that. We're working on that. It's not an easy problem, but it is a problem that we think we can solve. And maybe the good news here is that with data, there's never an end. You know, like we will.
Sure. There's always going to be
We'll
more
always
of
need
it,
to scale.
always going to be
Yes.
changing.
That's
So
right.
that's interesting. So I think we all agree that an AI factory for a factory on the edge is an important thing,
Yep.
Especially in this new age of agentic AI. And I'm curious, what does that look like to you, and what do your customers need to get the steps to get there?
Yeah, I think it's so it's interesting. There's a lot of discussion right now in the ecosystem about ROI and so on. As I said earlier, I think the models are amazing. You can do a lot with these models, even the very optimized models. But there's a little bit of work you have to put into it, right? We talked about data a fair bit. I think customers capturing and structuring data as much as possible is helpful. However, I do think one of the big gaps we're seeing now is getting enterprise employees, using the tools, familiar with the tools.
Right.
Like you can get a license for, whatever tool X, Y, and Z for your employees. You're not going to see ROI until they actually, use it. Your employees are using it. They're seeing that productivity improvement. They're actually, experimenting with it, finding new ways to use it, and so on. On some level, I do think your employees are going to be the ones training the AIs,
Right.
so it's really important that they do that. But yeah, outside of data capture, I would say that's it. I think there's a cultural kind of gap we have right now to getting people kind of using the tools for more than just like writing an email to your student, your child's teacher.
For sure.
Really interesting though that we evolve very quickly, and now AI creates this different relationship where it can do a lot more of the work we do, and it can make us like exponentially more productive, or it can actually kind of replace the productivity and that relationship between humans and machines. We're still, to what you're saying, to some extent, beholden to people participating, which by the way has been a problem with every technological shift in history. Is like, do the people use the tools? Because anyone that's run companies like we do and bought technology tools and then been frustrated about why, it's like the tech works. Yeah. It's people in the relationship, it's complicated.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is that it's always like, some people call it a time machine. I think of it as a force multiplier for your human employees. And if they're not using it, you're not going to realize that increased productivity. I know for me personally, I've used it. It's uncomfortable at first, to like play around with these tools and so on, but the increased productivity is amazing.
For sure.
I mean, I don't know how I'd live without it at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm in that world too.
I love it.
It's funny. I went in one year with my employees saying, if you use AI for certain tasks, I will fire you. And then I moved into, I will fire you if you don't actually use these tools.
So I have a variation on that. We had some candidates we were interviewing for jobs, and some of these interviews are remote because they're remote. They live in remote locations. They haven't relocated yet. And the question came up of like, well, what do we do if we think they're using AI? And I said, well, what if we said it's okay to use AI?
Right.
And not only is it okay to use AI, but we want to see how you're using AI as part of it. And I actually meant it, and that's what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're going to use AI, great. You might be using AI at work. You probably will. So let's.
Yeah. I think there was a period where you realized there's no turning back. We're not going back to cotton gins, no printing presses. It's not going to be linear television in the future, and we're not going to have a world where AI is not driving productivity, and whether it's on the factory floor, or whether it's in the data center, or whether it's out in autonomous vehicles, or all these different things. But what I will say is physical AI and what you're talking about is a huge opportunity.
For sure.
We see it as a multi-trillion-dollar TAM expansion that basically is just getting started.
Yeah.
And this was a great conversation, Anwar. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, and thanks everybody for joining this session here of our Lenovo Tech World program coverage. We've got a lot more expert conversations coming up here. Stick with us. We'll be back in a few.